Good morning, everyone. We're back with a book chat with a long sort of book of the month thing. I don't even know how to use words anymore. But as always, I'm here with Nicki. This is part of our ongoing genre talk series, and today we're talking fantasy. But before we get into the book we're talking about, let's just do a brief intro for people who are new to the channel and the stream. So please go ahead, Nicki.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Nicki. I'm an author and editor, and I post videos here on YouTube about writing, editing, reading, and all the things I love, which is what we're here for today.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. And if you're new to my channel, my name is Alina. I'm a genre fiction author, and I do post videos on YouTube, mostly about writing and being an author, and sometimes about books, and everything that has to do with publishing. And we started this genre talk series last year, and we dedicated one stream to each genre in genre fiction. And then for this year, we decided to also read a book for each genre we discussed and then see how we feel about them. And today's author is Naomi Novik. And I'm not sure. I'm getting some really loud shuffling, but I'm not sure.
Okay. I don't hear it.
Okay, it might just be on my end. It's fine. If anyone in the chat can hear it, let me know. If it's just me, we won't care. So, Naomi Novik. She was born in 1973. And if you didn't gather through her books and the myths she uses, her mother was Pole and her father was Lithuanian and Jewish, which explains a lot of things from spinning silver and all the Slavic myths and fantasy characters, let's say, that appear in her later books, like Baba Yaga and everything else. The book we're discussing now is one of her earlier books. It was published in 2006, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, 2006. It's called His Majesty's Dragon. And when it was first released in the UK, it was called Temeraire, which then became the series name. And it's now His Majesty's Dragon everywhere. She won a couple of awards for it. No, she won the Compton Crook Award for Best First Novel in the science fiction and fantasy category for Temeraire, and she was nominated for a Hugo Award for Best Novel. And then later books won her a Nebula Award, but that is not exactly related to Temeraire. This is a bit of a hybrid because it's fantasy and also an alternate history book. This is an alternate version of the Napoleonic Wars, and there are dragons. There be dragons, so to say, used in battle. And from what I know, she released the first 3 books in this series in the same year. Yep. And then she continued to write this series until 2016 when the series ended. And I think it has 9 books.
Yeah, 9.
Yeah. So there it go. There you go. Fast release. Rapid release. Sorry, that's what I meant. Rapid release at its best. So yeah, that's the short intro to the book. Nicki, overall thoughts?
Overall, I liked it. I mean, as you know, Alina, this is a bit of a period for me. I do like my Georgian into the Regency era. So naturally, it appealed to me straight away because of that. And I mean, who doesn't love adding dragons to anything? I mean, can you really go wrong adding a dragon? I don't think so. I did like the angle. And I enjoyed how it mostly kept to the period as well. Obviously, we did have these features of the dragons and all this aerial combat going on. But in terms of the sort of people's manners, their views towards women, things like that, it did keep a definite period feel for the era that seemed right. And so I really enjoyed that. And I did like the use of the different dragon species as well, with the appendix giving you the descriptions of the traits of the different species, which sort of added a bit of, I get not realism, but you know what I mean. It added that's the sort of facts that added to your belief about what was going on. And I thought it was a pretty well-paced book as well.
Yeah, the pacing was really great, and it starts strong because it's like right after a naval battle, and then they discover the egg, and everyone is like completely off kilter because of this egg. Because in this world, the moment the dragon hatches, it needs a rider, and they need to bond with their rider, and it has to be a trained officer from the airborne corps of the military, which sounds so weird for that era, but man, dragons, it's awesome. And the thing is that their view on this was that the moment you get a dragon, your life is over. You cannot marry, you cannot have a family, and that's very British. That's very British, because I'm not sure, they don't explore exactly what happens on the French side of things, but in later books, when you go to China, you realize that the society is completely different in terms of how it's integrated dragons and how they are regarded. But that was like, oh my God, why can't you have a wife? Like, if I met someone who had a dragon, I'd marry them on the spot. And then I'll push them away and say, yeah, you go rest. I'll ride your dragon into battle. It's fine. But, it's the area and the period. I think that matters, because they're very gentlemanly about a lot of things and very honor-bound, which is the fun part. But then it's this tragic thing where you can't have any other bonds. And the reaction of the family and the ex-fiance, well, soon-to-be ex-fiance, were kind of baffling to me. It was like, dude, there's a dragon. Have you seen the dragon? It's magnificent. It speaks multiple languages. It's smarter than all of you combined. So, yeah. Speaking of said dragon, there's a mystery around its origin and its species, and they call him Temeraire. That's where that comes from. And he's magnificent. Like, the best part about this book is the dragon.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree.
It's amazing. Like, he's so interesting and so curious. And I think the part I like most is the way you perceive the world and the war and society through the dragon's eyes, because they have to explain things to him.
Yeah.
And that's when you realize a lot of things just don't make sense. Like, what? Why? But why? And I think Temeraire makes a solid effort to understand everything, and he does it because of his rider. And yeah, but I don't think it makes sense in the end. Like, but the one thing I can say that I could see in this book, and then I recognized it as being more in focus in her later books, is that there's no actual black and white. There's a lot of gray happening on all sides. I mean, even with that French rider that turns out to be, I can't spoil that. There might be mild spoilers in these conversations, because it's kind of hard not to get into things, but there's no clear villain. It's a bad situation. There's a war going on, and you can take the position that Napoleon was to blame for everything, and he's the bad guy, and the French are the enemy. But when you get into the, I don't know, lower down the ranks with, people just fighting because they were told to, you realize there's a lot of gray, and you can see that in how the characters react, because there's a lot of respect for their opponents and how they conduct themselves and things like that. Because I think in the beginning, Lawrence is quite judgmental of how the French react in the naval battle, and then when they discovered the egg, they were like, oh yeah, now it makes sense why they were acting like this. And he's actually he changes his entire behavior toward the captain of the other ship,
and I think even more so later when they discover what sort of dragon Temeraire is as well, which adds that extra dimension to why they were so keen on protecting this egg. I mean, perhaps I should just mention briefly, I know if you read all of them, I know you've read further in the series, haven't you?
I've read the second one, and I'm up to the third one now.
Okay, because at the moment I've only read this first one that we're talking about. So
I can't wait for you to read the next one. I think because the next one happens in China.
Okay.
So yeah, that's glorious.
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about Choiseul, the French guy who you mentioned just a minute ago, that was one of the only things I thought I would have liked to have seen him fleshed out a little bit more at times. Yeah, because I thought, there's kind of more to his character than we actually got to see, and once or twice I would have just liked a little bit more background, his motivations and things.
Yeah, I think so. But in that situation,
we couldn't
given
really
the point of view, you couldn't. He wouldn't have opened up about it, and there was no way for the POV character to see him in other situations, because he just met briefly on the front, which I would have liked to see more into that, but there was no way to do it without either introducing a new POV character, which I don't think she wanted, or I don't know, just having a side story somehow, which I mean, I don't think the payoff would have been worth the whole tangent, but it would have been nice to explore, maybe in a separate short story, the life and adventures
on him.
Of French dude and his dragon. I'm bad with names. Like, I'm still surprised I remembered Lawrence. And I mean, with Temeraire, it's easy.
I did find the two Rolands a little bit confusing once or twice, the older and younger. There were one or two times when they just said Roland. It just took me a couple of lines to go, it means the younger one or the older one, depending on the context.
Yeah, that was tough. I really liked how they organized things around the dragon, and how it had a crew. Like each dragon had a crew, and there were people on board, and handling weaponry and whatever. And
it's like the engineers of the current Air Force or something, the ones who work on the ship, and
and it was like a bit of a combo between an aerial and naval fight, because people were trying to board the dragon, and that was quite interesting, because if you have this giant beast, it makes sense, because nobody was trying to actually kill the dragons. They were trying to just take them over and just kill the crew, because dragons were so valuable and there weren't that many.
I thought those aerial battles were actually really well described. You got a good sense. You could really picture what was going on from the text.
And it wasn't like an all-powerful sort of thing when the dragon could see everything. There was never any danger, and you had the limitations you would have in a real fight with low visibility and clouds getting in the way. And I particularly enjoyed that. And I was thinking about the characters though, because it was a bit of a shocking thing for everyone that they kept throwing, like with the dragons and how their hierarchy was, and who was in charge of the actual aerial force. And the woman pilot, and how free and completely independent she was. It was interesting, because you had this really strict era, and then you had these subversive things thrown in, and the main character needed to react to them. And I always thought it was an interesting reaction, because although he was accepting in the end, at first they took him aback. I think the woman pilot thing bothered him more than anything else.
Yeah.
So it was a character that was true to their era, which I found refreshing. Because the problem I have with historical fiction sometimes, even if it's alternate universe, is when you're in this area where you know how things, this era, Alina, era, when you know how things went down, and then in the book it's like everyone is suddenly accepting of everything, and every time your dirty little secret is unveiled, because it was considered a dirty little secret at that time, then everyone around you is accepting, like there's no one completely against you, or at least on the sidelines. Like, I don't know how to feel about that. So I appreciated that, especially because you had a well-educated character who'd been around a bit. Like, it's not like he never left his hometown or something. No. He was a high society officer in the end. So yeah, I found that quite refreshing and interesting, to be honest. But
I mean, I liked his relationship as well, the way it developed with Temeraire through the novel.
Yeah.
As you sort of see him being a bit uncertain at first, and then gradually they build up this really close friendship. The only thing that grated on me a little was the way he kept calling Temeraire my dear, and I'm not sure why, but there was just something about it that just didn't ring quite right to me. I was like, why would he use that term? And there was just something about it. It just never felt natural to my ear as I was like reading it.
It didn't bother me, to be honest. I think it was like a way to portray a combination between a child, a surrogate life partner, and a dear friend. So from that perspective, it made sense. It didn't bother me. I think in a way, Lawrence transferred all of his care to him, because the moment he got Temeraire, he understood any other relationships would probably be out of the picture. So if you think of them as partners for life, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think it's a way, it kind of mirrors the way Temeraire sees him, because for Temeraire, Lawrence is his. That's it.
Yeah.
End of story. And I think Temeraire is more vocal about it, but in a different way, and he shows it more through actions, while Lawrence just has this endearment for him. And it's more low-key because, he's British. A bit stuck up. He's a bit stuck up. Just a tiny bit. I think he does start as a very rigid and strict character, and that's kind of worn down through the first book.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
Through everything, first Temeraire, and then the other pilots, and then just life happening and war, and seeing a lot of pain and a lot of great people who maybe otherwise he wouldn't have given a second thought to. Although, just to be fair, right from the start, he's not overtly classist or anything. He doesn't appear to be one of those officers who doesn't associate with his crew or anything. He's quite the opposite, but he's still a bit like strict and rigid, and
he has the hierarchy from the Navy.
Yeah, and he's set in his ways, and he has very clear values, and maybe he does see the world a bit in black and white to begin with, and that changes drastically and fast. And as a character development through the book, I really enjoy that, because he's a grown up man. He's an adult. He has a lot of life experience. So I don't think there were a lot of areas where he could shift, like change his personality throughout the book. So I think that was a good choice. Because I mean, it's easier when you're doing like YA or something. It's easier to just show the mature. But when you start up as an adult, as a character, it can be tricky. And I think this was well done. I enjoy that. But I don't know. I think if this book was published now, though, it wouldn't do as well.
No, I think so. I think that was a really good period for it to have come out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I
think
do agree.
What I like most about this is that Naomi Novik seems to know that quite well, because the books she writes now are quite different from what she wrote then.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. In terms of feel and just style, this seemed very different from Uprooted or Spinning Silver, for example.
Yes. Yeah.
I feel like right now there's a demand for things that are a bit grimdark, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which it taps into quite nicely, and interestingly, it's always a great way to do it with things that aren't overused, because Polish myths and all the Russian folklore and things like that, they're not overused yet. But I don't think there's that grim dark feel in Temeraire at all.
No, it's very much a sort of standard light, what I call a light fantasy, because it's not sort of really heavy on all the epic Tolkien elf kind of. Yeah, no,
because the only fantasy element in it are dragons.
The dragons, really. Yeah.
So they're worked in quite nicely, and this is all societies are modified to accommodate dragons, but that's it. It's not a magical thing.
No,
there's no magic in the world. They just have these majestic beasts that can do a lot of things, including breathing fire occasionally or spitting acid. It has an urban fantasy feel to it, because it's all very well integrated in the world. But it's still not urban fantasy. It's still fantasy, because dragons and the period, I think. But
what I actually find interesting about the piece as well, and this may be to do with Novik's background, because obviously she is known as setting up archive of their own fan fiction. And in some ways, it does feel a little bit like a fan fiction. It's like she loves the Napoleonic Wars, but she's decided to add dragons to it. It almost felt for me a little bit like sort of a Napoleonic Wars fan fiction with this fantasy element thrown in, which, as you say, she's really gone beyond now with Uprooted and Spinning Silver.
Yeah, but I mean, sort of. It feels like that. Maybe if I think of the first book, but the more I think of the second book, it feels less like it.
Right.
It feels like she used dragons as a way to explore mentalities of different players in the area.
Right.
Because it explores how the French treated them, how the British treated them, and how these societies were altered. And then it shifts focus to China, where it seems like things evolved in a completely different way, but it mirrors what we know about Chinese society, because in that period, they did treat the world as if everyone else was beneath them. Because that's how they saw it. There were the gods, the Chinese, and the rest of us. Which wasn't true. Like, they were superstitious, and but that sort of tension is really nicely explored later when the British travel to China, and there's almost this diplomatic incident because the Chinese managed to piss off everyone on board the ship. With some casual comments, which I thought was quite cool. So yeah, I think the more she wrote the series, the more she moved away from that feel.
Right.
But I do get why you'd feel that way. It does sound like it a bit. But the kind of really good fan fiction. that you actually enjoy reading a lot, and it stands on its own.
Yeah.
Plus, it's a historical piece, which kind of requires a lot more research and care than just dropping dragons, let's say, in today's world.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. The more I think about it now, the more I see it.
And I don't mean that in a negative way.
No,
it's just that from her background as well. It's like this is the first original piece she came out with, and you can kind of see that where she's come from, as she's moving through her writing career.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'd be interested to read some more of this series to see what you're saying about how it develops.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I've read about it, about her and other fantasy writers that are grouped together, and she's always referred to in connection to Brandon Sanderson, who writes a lot more, I don't know, darker worlds, I think.
Yeah. A little bit more epic fantasy style.
Yes, but it is epic, but it's kind of the same take on having limited fantasy elements.
Yeah.
Because if I think of the Stormlight Archives, there are magical powers, let's call them, but there aren't dragons or anything. They're just humanoids. Yeah. So in that they're similar, but I feel like they're more alike in style when you think of Novik's later work than her earlier works, because there's never this feeling of hopelessness in Temeraire, at least not so far.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the rest of the series, but when I read the first Stormlight Archives book, The Way of Kings, there were quite clear moments where you could feel the hopelessness the characters were feeling. And it was grim. It was grimdark, but good grimdark.
Yeah.
So yeah, it surprised me. I mean, I think that's why it took me a while to connect to the Naomi Novik that writes Uprooted and Spinning Silver to the Temeraire series, which, by the way, I had read the first book about 10 years ago.
Right.
Something like that. A couple of years after it had been released, because a friend of mine lent it to me. I read the first one and then I stopped because I moved back home and I lost my my library. He had this full room of fantasy books because that's what he's reading. So yeah, I used to go to borrow books from him. So I read Spinning Silver, I read Uprooted, and I never made the connection until I went to Amazon to search something about Uprooted. I think it was number of pages or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
And in the recommended, I saw Temeraire, and I was like, oh my God, I read this book.
Yeah.
Because the cover is quite distinctive for the first book. And then I was like, oh my God, they have the same author. Wow. I did not see that coming. Like I said, I'm also bad with names. But style-wise, I did not immediately make the connection. And I think there's a huge divide between that series, at least in the beginning, and the later books. I'm curious to see how it evolved through the Temeraire series, because like I said, I'm on book 3. There are 9 books. And the first 3 were published in 2006. The last one was in 2016. So
yeah, so it's a lot of time to develop your style. Yeah.
It's a 10-year evolution in the end. So I assume the later one should be closer to what I've read in her later books. But yeah, there's like a completely different perspective to be explored in how she approaches the world. But I think the constant is this gray shade that covers everything. The no clear black and white. I mean, there are some instances where, like, this guy is trying to kill people. He's obviously bad. Yeah. But then the deeper you dive into the motivations, it kind of shifts. Like, I don't know
Yes.
if I'm making myself clear.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, yeah.
Anything you didn't like about the book? Because, you know, we should get into that too.
Not especially. I mean, I kind of already mentioned, I think, most of them, and none of them were major, just wanted to have a bit more fleshing out on one or two characters here and there. The my dear thing that just never quite sat right with me.
Yeah.
But that's probably pretty much it.
It is a huge cast, though. It is a huge cast.
It is. I mean, one or two plot points I thought perhaps were a little bit obvious, but nothing like so bad that it sort of made you think, oh, I don't want to read on because I know what's going to happen. There was still enough action and enough suspense to keep you going, even if you kind of got one or two bits ahead of time. So
yeah,
that was pretty it for me. I mean, I think I gave it 4 stars, didn't I? I rated it a month or two ago now. I think I gave it 5.
Like
yeah, I thought it was very
4
solid.
or 5 same. Yeah,
very solid.
I think you gave it 4 stars. I think I have a clear image of your Instagram post.
Yeah.
Oh God. So yeah, no, it was hard to find fault in the book. It's a solid fantasy book. It's a solid alternate history book, and it has amazing dragons. And this I didn't mention. I especially liked the fact that all the dragons were very, very different in skills and intelligence level and everything, because they were bred for different purposes.
Yeah.
And this was very clear. And even dragons in the same species and kind of, you know, related were still very unique in their personalities.
Yes. Yeah.
And I also enjoyed a lot the fact that Temeraire does behave like a teenager for quite a bit of the book.
Yeah.
And in later books, his animal side is explored a bit more.
Right.
Because he does at one point lose track of everything going on because of animal instincts, let's say. I think that's vague enough that I don't spoil stuff from the second book.
Yeah.
And I think it was nicely done. It was like a high IQ teenager having conversations with a very patient adult. That was how I felt about their relationship at a lot of points in the book. And I found that interesting. And I remember distinctly when Lawrence had to tell him that, you know, not all dragons are as smart as you. Don't be mean. And I was like, oh my God, he's like a mini dragon version of Sheldon Cooper. A bit. And that I enjoyed. And I don't know. I'm not that well versed into the whole Napoleon history part. I didn't see anything glaringly annoying about it. Not sure if you spotted anything, because let's be honest. Between the two of us, you're the history expert.
Yes, and I mean, as I said earlier, it is my period, so I have read a fair bit about Napoleon and the wars and this time, this era. So no, I mean, nothing major. I thought for the most part she kept it pretty well in period. Obviously there are a few changes, but that's just relating to the needs of the story. So I don't see a problem with that at all, because it is, as we're saying, it's alternate history. It's not trying to be an absolute 100% historical novel. But I thought she kept enough right for it to work. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen historical fiction that's not alternate that does a poorer job.
Yeah.
To be honest.
True. Yeah.
But I mean, I've seen nothing glaring at all.
No.
And I enjoyed it. Like, I mean, I love when there's a lot of adventure in my fantasy, and when there are battles and things like that. Of course, if you don't like that, if the battle aspect annoys you, probably not the book for you. But then there's dragons and fighting with dragons. Why would you not like it? I mean,
Now,
I don't know.
perhaps we should talk adaptations because now obviously there have been no adaptations, but when I was reading online in preparation for this stream, I saw that Peter Jackson had at one point optioned the rights to do this as a film and then later as a TV series, but then it looks like that's all fallen through and nothing's happening now. And I do wonder if that relates in some way to what you were saying earlier about the books being very much of that time period, and whether a film would necessarily, I think it would have worked early, mid-2000s, but I don't know whether it would necessarily have an audience now.
Oh, I think it would have an audience. I think the problem is the production cost. If you think of Game of Thrones, later series, when they had a lot of dragons in them, those were shorter and very expensive.
Yeah.
So this doesn't work well as a movie, because I think it would be well suited for a series of sorts. But if it did a live action adaptation, I think it would cost too much. I think that's the main problem, because they can change the script. They can work with Naomi Novik and make it a bit more suited to this period. I think the cost is the main issue. I think this would work way better as an animation.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah,
because the costs would be lower.
I was having to think about who I'd cast as well, and I just kept coming back to Eddie Redmayne as the voice for Temeraire.
No clue who that is.
Do you know Fantastic Beasts movie?
Yes.
He plays Newt, the main character.
Oh, okay. Yes. No. Yes. Maybe. I don't know.
Not in his Newt voice, obviously, but.
Yeah, I was thinking that Benedict Cumberbatch would make a nice Lawrence.
I considered him, and I wondered if he was a bit old.
Not really,
the character.
He's like, the character is close to his 30s, right? Because he's been a captain for a while. He's in his 30s, I think.
I was picturing him, early 30s-ish.
Yeah, but it's early 30s in that period, so probably today's 40s.
I was also thinking like J.J. Field or Dan Stevens.
Or our mutual favorite Loki.
Tom Hiddleston. Yeah, I mean, he'd do that upper class British officer.
He'd do it well. But I was thinking of Benedict Cumberbatch, because I've seen him play the role of the really strict British guy.
Yeah.
That, kind of sheds all that aside. So he can pull it off. I don't know. But yeah, you need British actors. And I think the other reason why it wouldn't work exactly as it is in an adaptation is because, given today's environment and way of thinking, people will have issues with the interaction with the Chinese. I'm pretty sure of that. Although it's very accurate, it's historically accurate. There's nothing wrong about it. Oh my God, there's nothing wrong about it. But I'm kind of seeing like the petitions to ban the movie because of things. Yeah. It makes no sense to me, but that would probably happen. So, but yeah, if they would go past all of that, for a TV series, they'd need a huge budget. And even with Game of Thrones, which was really popular, they had a lot of budget issues, because to have the dragons in there and have them look good, that costs a lot of money. So yeah, maybe an animation or a movie featuring just, tiny bits of the entire plot, but it would lose a lot. I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it might be a combination of all those factors, but I'm pretty sure cost is the major.
And I would do it on the stage as well. I don't know, have you ever seen the stage adaptation or any images from Warhorse on stage?
No.
Oh, you should try and check it out, because they do the Film Warhorse, but there's a stage version from England, and it's done with these amazing puppets. And I could see that style of puppetry working for the dragons, and they do ride the horses and that in the show. I could see that working quite well in this similar style of production.
Yeah, it would work if you ignore the scale. That would because I don't think you can have that huge of a dragon on stage, because they wouldn't have like the whole crew. They'd just have a rider, I imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would work. I would like if they made a series. Like if they made a series or a series of movies based on this series, I'd go see all of them religiously. Of course, if they read anything about Temeraire or Lawrence, I would probably be mad about it, like outspokenly mad about it. But yeah, I mean, it would make like for interesting movie times, but I don't see how they can do it with today's technology without it costing a fortune. And I think that's the main reason, because with a movie like that, if it tanks, there's a lot of money to lose.
Money sunk into it. Yeah.
Because it's the scale of it too. Because if you think of Game of Thrones and those dragons, they only have one rider. So it would be an even larger scale for an entire crew to ride them.
Yeah.
It would be the scale of, I don't know, a small commercial plane that flies 40 people.
Yeah.
So that's hard to achieve in a way that doesn't look like completely fake. I think I can always ask movie experts, but yeah, that's my suspicion, which is kind of sad in a way. But who knows? Maybe in another 10 years.
Yeah, when the tech moves on a bit more again. Yeah,
yeah, it would be easier to make. But by that time, I think they're more likely to make movie adaptations of Uprooted or Spinning Silver. I think those are easier to make technology-wise, and I think they would make for great visuals. Now that I think about them, either one.
Yeah.
Like and it would be a way lower budget, because you don't have this ridiculously huge dragon to show up in every scene. Yeah. Because it's not just, it doesn't just show up a bit in the background. Hey.
Yeah, it is pretty much all the time.
Look at those dragons flying by. No, Temeraire is front and center all the time. But yeah, who knows? Fingers crossed. Technology evolves enough that we can see all that in the future. I wouldn't mind at all. I know a lot of people who would probably queue for days to get tickets to that. But yeah, I think Temeraire is actually a very popular series, or was when it came out.
Right.
It wasn't this small thing. It was huge, and it was a good debut. I mean, I've seen far worse debuts. Enough to get awards and then have nine books still going.
Yeah.
And it only took like 10 years for 9 books. I'm not looking at George R.R. Martin right now at all.
I actually had a question on I do weekly blog hops, and the question this week was do you reread books in a series when a new one comes out? And I kind of said, well, sometimes time's the factor. And I was like, if George R.R. Martin ever decides to bother to finish this series, there's no way I can go back and read all those books again. I'm just going to have to look online and try and get things like in my head, because of course the series now ruins it as well, because you've got the series going on, which is a little bit different.
Yeah, it's a lot different. I feel like theme-wise and message-wise, the HBO series strayed a lot from the source material. I think that's why George R. R. Martin just washed his hands off and was like, you can do whatever the heck you want. I'm not involved with that. I know last season, I think, when they were airing the final episode, he was on Twitter promoting a different fantasy series or something like that. And I think that my suspicion is that we don't have the next book because of this. I think he's very unhappy with HBO and what they did. And I think he's ruminating and changing the series. I think he will rewrite that book he was working on for that long and then just take the series in a different direction just to, distance himself from HBO. I don't know. I have this feeling. If he ever finishes it, they might have read it for him forever, which is a possibility. But hey, people, there's a lot of George R. R. Martin literature to read, and it's great. And all his sci-fi is amazing. So maybe try that. You'll find all the connections between his sci-fi worlds and the Game of Thrones world, and understand why some people believe it's not fantasy, it's sci-fi. Which is an interesting theory, by the way. And it has merit. I would like to point that out. But yeah, I'm not sure if other than Temeraire and the recent Chew, I've ran into anything else by Naomi Novik.
No, I think that's it at the moment.
But I do hope she writes some more. But yeah, that's it. The Temeraire series and Uprooted and Spinning Silver. Oh, I just realized that Uprooted was published before the end of this series. So yeah, it's probably a safe bet to say that the last bits of the series are closer to her more recent style, which would invalidate our theory about it maybe not translating well to today's preferences. But we'll have to read and see.
We'll find out when we finish. That's it.
Yep. Any other? Oh, yeah. I wanted us to discuss, because we started this conversation about how this would not work as well right now. If it were published now, I think the cover wouldn't work as well if it were published today either, because fantasy covers have changed a bit. Then again, this is a trad pop book. It's alternate history. It might still work. But I think at least the font would be changed a lot. And probably would have a more close-up view of the dragon.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think the style has definitely shifted a little bit since then.
Yeah, and I think that I'm just going to check the last couple of covers, because I'm just curious. Yeah, of course. They did change them a bit. And the dragon is more front and center, but it's still kind of, how do you say, cartoonish.
Right.
And it changed with the 2013 book.
Okay.
When they focused on him more. The others are kind of in the same style, with Temeraire entirely drawn on the cover, no close-ups.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up.
I think so.
Anything else we needed to add?
I don't think so. I think we pretty much covered all we can discuss without spoiling everything.
Yeah, the problem with these conversations is that we don't really want to make them spoiler rich. Like, there might be minor spoilers.
Yeah, you can't avoid everything as we talk. No.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, that's how far we can go, people. So if anyone has read the book during this 2-month period, let us know what you think of it. We would like to know. inquiring minds want to know. And should we talk about our next read?
Yes. Yep. So we're doing contemporary romance in our next one, which will be in June for this style of discussion. And we are going to be talking about Slammed Into You by CM Valencourt. So
I'm going to paste the link in the comments in the live chat, and I will also add it to the description of this video, so everyone has time to read it until then.
Yeah, we will be back in the meantime, of course. We'll be back next month, which I mean, I assume we'll probably be looking probably around the 5th. I think is the first Sunday, Alina. So we will confirm that with you anyway. But we'll be back on my channel then, and we're going back to our more standard genre talk discussions that we, as Alina said, we started last year. And from memory, I think we are on manga and graphic novels on May. So we will see you all on my channel in May for that, and then back on Alina's channel here in June for the Slammed Into You discussion.
Yeah. I did update the description of the video, of the live stream, sorry, so you should be able to see it now, to have a link to the book there as well. It bears to say that this is a gay contemporary romance, so I would like to be quite open about that so that we don't have people complain at all for any reason. So yeah, we will chat about that in 2 months. Hopefully there won't be any delays. By the way, this stream was supposed to be happening last Sunday, but as you all know, because I complained about it a lot, I had some issues with a persistent migraine who wouldn't go away for like 4 days. So I do apologize for that. I should have probably apologized in the beginning, but I forgot because not enough coffee. Or as my friend Claire likes to say, it's not getting any better than this anyway. Let's just start. So yeah, before we sign off, would you like to tell us a bit about what you've been up to in the past month, what plans you have, what interesting things are happening on your channel and things like that?
Okay, channel-wise, the usual stuff's coming out. I mean, I have about 4 or 5 videos every month that go out, which usually include a few tags, some writing and editing tips, and of course my end of the month wrap-ups on the things I've been watching and reading. So I'll be back again with my next ones of those in a couple of weeks' time as we come to the end of April, and I've got quite a few really great books I've read this month, so I'll be looking forward to sharing those with you. In terms of writing and things, actually Alina and I have been talking recently about, I've got a couple of books that I've just had the rights back from the publisher for. So I'm looking at potentially self-pubbing those. So I've actually just finished today the second one. I've been reading through, just doing another edit. I mean, they had all been edited by the publisher, so it didn't need too much work. I've just been making a few little tweaks now that I have full control over where the commas go and that sort of thing. And also Alina and I have been talking for a little while about my the Ragnarok Chronicles, which was originally supposed to be a 3-part series, but I ended up releasing as a single book. And I'm now looking at possibly doing a re-release as that series, as the original intent was. So I've just finished editing all 3 because it is 5 years since I wrote it, and when I read it now, I'm like, I could do this pro so much better now. So I thought, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to take the opportunity to just improve them and get them up to a standard that I'm happy with now. Sense. So I've gone through them all once, but because I've made quite a few changes and cuts, I am going to do another proofread on them as well, because I'm just worried I've introduced some typos along the way. So that's all in progress. And so Alina's very kindly offered to guide me a bit on doing this. So I'll be talking to her more in the coming months about doing those later this year into next year.
I so can't wait.
So, and of course, I've got Blood is Forever coming out from 9 Star Press. The date of that is now the 3rd of June. It's just been pushed back a week. So we're just finishing edits. We're on the final proofread now, and I've just got the cover design confirmed. I'm just waiting to get the final file through from Natasha so I can put some promo stuff together and all that. So in the May stream, I'll have a little bit more to tell you about that as well. But what about you, Alina?
So awesome. I'm super excited now because I know I've been pushing for you to self-pub those books, and I'm really excited to read the new version of the Ragnarok Chronicles.
The story, I mean, nothing will have changed in the story and characters, but I have really tightened the prose.
It doesn't matter. It's been 5 years. It's been 5 years. It will sound better anyway. As for proofreading, I stand by my friend Clive, which is how I named my read aloud option in Word.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the best proofreading tool I've ever encountered for myself, anyway. Because and it's the most amusing tool I've ever encountered, because I've done edits on Find the Men Don't Settle Down, which is the first book in our investigations. Right. And when I finished editing it, I went through another round with my friend Clive, and I have PI a lot, and he always reads it as pie. And he goes like, who's the pie? Yeah, it's awesome.
I wonder how he'd cope with some of my Ragnarok Chronicles then, because if you think about all those words I've got in Old Norse.
Oh, it would be nice. But I mean, my character, he's been adopted, and his adoptive father is Japanese, so his surname is Naoki, and he goes like Naoki, and I'm like, oh my god, so far. But you know, he has a pretty soothing voice, and there's something about just listening to someone else read the book for you. It's easy to spot things, typos first of all, because he will read it as it is. I read it as I believe it is, obviously. Yes. But when he reads aloud, like dialogue or things like that, you spot things faster, I feel. So yeah, I've been doing that. I'm working on mysteries, not the mysteries I was supposed to work on, mind you. Because I was supposed to write Owl Investigations Book 2. I already have like 13,000 words of it, and I was supposed to continue that and write the third book. But then I was like, I need to edit the first book. And I kept postponing that because I was terrified of sending it out, because I sent it to my boyfriend and to Claire. And it's my first mystery, and I think it's crap now. Like now when I was editing it, I was like, oh, this is pretty good. When I was proofing it and I was getting closer to sending it to them, I was like, oh my god, this is such crap. And my email to Claire was like, I hope this doesn't make you want to poke your eyes out, or you know, just poke your brain out, whatever. I hope it doesn't give you that kind of a trauma. And to my boyfriend, I just sent it with very clear instructions of what to look for. Because he's not the sugarcoating kind of opinion guy. Like, he's going to tell you. If he thinks it's crap, he's going to say it's crap. So I'm trying to just frame that in a way that doesn't make me go crying in a corner for 3 days, and I actually can use his feedback. So yeah, I did that. And in the meantime, I'm working on a cozy mystery. I've created a cover for it. I posted it in my author group on Facebook. Yeah. By the way, if you want to join that, there's a link in the description. You'll be the first to see everything I do, including new covers that I make for books I'm not supposed to write. And then I write those books. So yeah, that's going well. I have like 12,000 words of it. And while I write that, I'll also be editing the next 3 books in Just Don't. I finished writing all of them. And I have to do my edit and then send them out to Lindsay. So, yeah. I should have a book out by the end of this month.
Great.
If I stop procrastinating things because I'm afraid everything I do sucks. Which is the worst reason in the world to procrastinate. I don't particularly enjoy it, but yeah, I'm going to do that. And for the rest of this month, we're going to keep doing the 10K Tuesday streams. I do those with Claire every Tuesday morning. Well, morning for me. It's like 2 p.m. for her, and an impossible time for everyone who's not in the Europe and Australia area. So if you're in the US, it's probably late at night for you, middle of the night, pretty much. I'm sorry for that, but yeah, those have been weirdly my best writing days. I got to 5K, so halfway there. Maybe by the end of the month, I'll end up having a 10K day.
Yeah.
And my channel is pretty much back on track. I do post 2 videos per week, unless it's this week when I didn't, because I was recovering from the migraine thing. So there's that. Also, make sure to check out my Facebook page because I've released drawing of my character Anu, who I use in D&D, but he's also like the main character in the next Warriors of Vis.
Oh yes, I just saw that one. Yeah, the blue shade one. Yeah.
Yeah. I found these. They're colored leads.
Yes.
And they're partly erasable. So I was trying to sketch with these. I'm not going to do it again. It's crap. It's really crap. It breaks off really easily. So I'm back to regular graphite. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I did that during the D&D stream, and I was like, oh my god, he's so pretty and lovely. And then the next day I was like, I could have done much better. But apparently it was good enough that our dungeon master said, okay, you get homework for next week. Draw the other 2 characters. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give it my best shot. So yeah. That's another reason to be terrified and procrastinate out of fear. Makes sense. But I'm fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. I guess. Anyway, so yeah, make sure to check out Nicki's channel, by the way. It's linked down below, and she's just released a video, I think, yesterday. I saw it this morning.
Today, this morning.
Yeah, it was yesterday for me, today for you.
Yeah.
It's an Ask an Author video, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's just a very short one, just me chatting about some of my sources of inspiration as an author, where do I get my ideas from and that. So, yeah, do check out that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, hi, Creative Coffee, and yeah, it's I mean, faux friend, it's debatable at this point. I've shared such a close relationship with procrastination that it's almost part of the family now. I mean, there's that. But yeah, let's go with faux. Let's pretend we don't want to procrastinate. Anyway, thank you everyone for being here. I know our streams are at an odd time, but we're trying to, both be awake.
Well, it's not odd for us. It's only odd for the Americans.
Yeah, which is like most of the people who watch. It's like with the books, like we do publish them everywhere, but let's face it, most of the sales are from the US side of Amazon. Like that's always the case. Thank you. I do appreciate you supporting our streams. Again, the next genre talk will be on Nicki's channel next month. And then you have 2 months to read the next book we're discussing. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you join us for the next conversation. We do enjoy doing these. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. What's left of it. More of it for me, because it's 10 a.m. But that's a weird brag. Like, that's a weird one. But anyway, we'll see you all later. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.